Hey guys, so I decided to do this a little bit differently just this week because some of the technology that's in my classroom is not working. So I decided I'm just going to go ahead and pre-record these. You're obviously going to have signed into the Zoom, and I'm just going to direct you to this video. So just bear with me this week while we try to get that fixed so that you can be live with the class. But hopefully this isn't too bad since it's just reviewing. All right, so based off of the review, I'm just going to the first half of the test. I noticed that most people understood the majority of it. So today I'm just going to go over the first three sections, which were fractions, order of operations, and the distributive property. I'm going to go over those exact questions that were on the page, and then you can double check with your answers that you submitted to see how you did on those. And then I'm going to do a few extra practice ones that you can do. And then I have an Edgelastics little assessment that you're going to do when you're finished. Now, don't stress about that just yet. That's just for me to see if I need to send y'all more practice after you're finished. So remember, this is just all reviewing from last year. And so hopefully we can get caught back up before we start into Algebra 1. So thank you for being patient with the technology issue. We're trying to get it figured out. So we're going to start with fractions, and hopefully you've downloaded the calculator from the resources section of your Google Classroom, because I'm going to show you a quick shortcut on how to do adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions, which will save your life. Okay? So just a recap on just some basics that you need to remember that are just good to know. Anytime you're starting with adding or subtracting fractions, you always have to find a common denominator. Okay, that's something that you always do. And again, I'm not going to go into all of that just because when we're doing adding and subtracting fractions, you're going to have calculators, and I'm going to show you like the easiest thing in the whole world to use instead of having to do like finding a common denominator. But that's just like a basic thing you need to remember. With multiplying fractions, we know we can just multiply straight across. So 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so that one's super easy. We love multiplying fractions. All right, next is dividing fractions, and you probably remember how to do these when we said keep, change, flip. All right, so you keep the first, you change the sign, and then you flip the last fraction, and then now it's multiplying, so you can just multiply straight across, and that can simplify to 1/3. All right, so that's really good. Now with adding and subtracting, I know I went through that pretty quick, but again, I'm going to show you that shortcut on your calculator, and then you're going to think, oh my gosh, that is 1,000 times easier. Now I'm going to show you the long way of adding and subtracting fractions so that you can really appreciate this trick I'm going to show you on the calculator. So when we're adding fractions, so this is number 1, you probably learned to write them like this. So 1/2 plus 1/4. Well, we can't have two different denominators. You have to find one that is common, that they both go into, a multiple that they both go into. And you prefer to do the smallest multiple. So I'm going to list the multiples of 2. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. For 4, we have 4, 8, 12, 16. And I can immediately see that they have 4 in common. So that's going to be my common denominator. All right, so what did I multiply this 4 by right here to equal 4? Multiplied it by 1. So that means I'm going to multiply the numerator by 1. So I get that. All right, and this 2, what did I multiply this 2 by to get 4? Multiplied it by 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. And if I multiply my denominator by 2, I have to multiply my numerator by 2, and that gives me 2. And we know that 1/2 and 2/4 is the same thing. It's still half. But we had to make it look a little different so that we could add them together. All right, so then we go back. Now that they have the same denominator, we have 4 and 4, Now we can add them together. So 2 plus 1 is 3, and then the denominator stays the same. So that answer would be 3/4. All right, and it's the exact same process for subtracting, okay? But again, I want to show you the super easy way to do it on your calculator. So hopefully you pinned it to like your little taskbar down at the bottom of your screen, and you can just do that by opening up the application, clicking it with 2 fingers at the same time, and then hit pin. Okay, if not, you're gonna have to go back to the link that I posted and launch the app. Okay, so yours is gonna look a little different than mine because this is for Mac software, but it's essentially the same thing. So my first question was 1/2 plus 1/4. Okay, so I want you to go to your calculator. And when you're doing fractions, this is very important when you're typing it into your calculator. You have to put fractions in parentheses. Okay, so there's a lot going on with this calculator, but if you look right above the 8, there's a parenthesis. Okay, so it's 1/2. So I click 1, and we know that a fraction is just a tiny division problem. So 1 divided by 2. Okay, and the division is over here on the side. And then we need to close the parentheses. So I have 1/2, okay? Make sure that it's in parentheses. Then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna add. I'm gonna open up another parenthesis and do the same thing with my other fraction. 1 divided by 4, close parentheses, okay? And there I have the whole problem for us. I hit enter. All right, and it gives me a decimal, and I can't, sometimes you're gonna get some weird decimals, and I'm not just gonna immediately know what that fraction is. So another cool thing your calculator does is right over here on math, click math, and then you see this very first thing, it says fraction. Well, it says frac, but you know, fraction. Hit enter, and it's gonna take our answer and it's gonna convert it into a fraction for you. And it is 3/4. So if we go back to our problem, that's what we got when we worked all of it out, okay? And we didn't have to find the common denominator. We didn't have to do any of that stuff. Okay, we found the exact same answer. Okay, so let's see if the same thing happens when we subtract. Okay, so let's split this up. We have number 2. Move all this out of the way. So we have 3/4 minus 1/3. So once again, we have denominators that are different. Okay, so what is a common denominator between 4 and 3? Okay, so you can come down here and you can write out the multiples: 4, 8, 12, 16, 3, 6, 9, 12. All right, what's the smallest number they both have in common? Is 12. Okay, so that is going to be that common denominator. So we have to rewrite each one of them. So what did I multiply 3 by to equal 12? Multiplied it by 4. So I have to do the same thing to the numerator. What did I multiply 4 by to get 12? I multiplied it by 3, so I have to do the same thing to the numerator, and I get 9. All right, just a reminder, we are subtracting it this time. So 9 minus 4 is 5, and the denominator stays the same. All right, so let's see if our handy little calculator trick gives us that same answer. So what was it, just so I don't forget? 3/4 minus 1/3, okay? So I open up my parentheses. 3 divided by 4, close parentheses, minus, open parentheses, 1 divided by 3, close parentheses. Okay? All right, see, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes you'll get a really weird decimal and you don't know just off the top of your head what the fraction is. So you just hit math, enter, enter, and then it converts it to a fraction for you, which once again is the same exact thing that we just got. Okay? And once you do this over and over and over and over again, it's not going to seem like a lot of steps on your calculator. And I think you can agree that it's a lot better than finding a common denominator and doing it that way. Okay? And then the same is also true for multiplying and dividing. Okay? And the beautiful thing about those is, let's see if I can just split my screen. Well, okay. All right, so same thing, even if you're multiplying, make sure you do it in parentheses. 1 divided by 3 times, open parentheses, 1 divided by 2, close parentheses. Enter, weird decimal, math, enter, enter, and it's 1/6. Just the same as if you were to multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 2 is 6. All right, and for division, it works where you don't have to keep, change, flip. You can just do the whole problem just straight from there. So 1 divided by 6 divided by 1 divided by 2. Lots of dividing. All right, 0.3333, math, enter, enter, and it's 1/3. Okay, beautiful little shortcut. You now have one of these calculators on your Chromebook, so there should be no reason why we're ever intimidated by fractions again. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a couple little practice ones that I want you to just pause the video and just do them in your calculator and see if you can get it. Okay, so let's see here. We'll do 5/6 plus, we'll say 3/4. Then you can do 9/12 minus 9/12 minus, let's see here, 20/25. I don't even know. 3, we have 1/3 times 5/7. And then last, we have, I don't even know. Let's see. Let's do 3/4 divided by 2/3. Oh, I think that's going to be a weird answer. Hold on one second. Oh, it's not too bad. Okay, so I want you to pause the video real quick and then work them out real quick. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and just post all the answers right now. Okay, so pause the video. All right, so there are the answers to those 4 problems. So double check yours. If maybe you didn't get it right, make sure you typed them into your calculator correctly. Make sure you did the right operation, because sometimes I'll be doing an addition and I might hit the minus sign that's right above it. Okay, so it could have been an operational error. All right, so that's part 1 of 3 of this. Now we're going on to order of operations. All right, so the main thing with these, because you have a calculator that can do this now, is you just have to remember what order to do the operation. So we used PEMDAS. Okay, so the first one is -1 minus 6. So a quick rule when you're doing negatives is, if I have like a minus, a positive number, I change it to a plus, and then I make my 6 a negative. So I have a -1 plus a -6. So that's going to be a -7. Okay, or you can type it into your calculator. Okay, because you can use these now, so you need to know how to use them. Okay, so first of all, the negative sign is not this. This is the subtraction sign on your calculator. The negative sign is this little button right here below the 3. Okay, it's in parentheses. So I could just do -1 minus 6. Let me move my screen. It's -7. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it. Okay, so that you just have it right there. Okay, same for number 6. We have 2 minus parentheses 3. All right, and so then that one will just give you 5. All right, and I'm the type that when it starts getting to this, when there's a lot of steps into it, like we see in 9 and 10, I type everything into my calculator. I'll do 2 plus 2 in my calculator just to be safe, okay? Because that's where you make little mistakes where you just think you have it in your head, which I'm not saying you can't do it in your head, but sometimes it's just better to be safe. Like on this next one, so many people knew 7 times 3 was 21, but then the negatives messed them up. So they put negative 21 because there were 2 negatives. But if you remember, if you're multiplying 2 negatives make a positive. And you can see that in your calculator. -7, parentheses, -3, and your calculator will just understand this as a multiplication problem. It's going to be a positive 21. Whoops. Okay. So then we have number 8. So once again, it's -4, parentheses, 5. That means you multiply them, okay? If there's not a specific operation, it's just parentheses. That parentheses means that you multiply, okay? So we have -4, parentheses, 5. Okay, if you want to do -4 times 5, you would get the same answer, okay? But the biggest thing is a lot of people just don't know where the negative symbol is, and that's this. Don't get it confused with this because it will say, well, let me clear it first. It won't even work because it's going to try to subtract whatever the last answer was. Let me try this. 5 times -4. Okay, I use the subtraction sign. It's going to give me an error code, okay, because I didn't use the negative sign. Over negative. There. Okay, so that was -20. All right, this is where order of operations is really important because I can see multiple operations. I see subtraction, I see an exponent, I see an addition. Yeah, so I see 3 operations right off the bat. So once again, I'm going to rewrite the PEMDAS so we see it. And that stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Okay, so let's just start right in on it. Okay, I like to do one step at a time. I don't like to rush through it because when you start rushing and trying to skip steps, then that's when you start making mistakes. So parentheses is the first one of it, so I'm going to work what's in parentheses first. So I usually underline it, and then I work it, and then I rewrite the problem. So for example, 1 minus 5, that's going to give me -4 squared plus -2. All right, next. So we've done parentheses. Now we have exponents. So I have -4 squared. Okay, if you want to know how to do that in your calculator, I always like to, if I'm doing negatives, you have to be really careful. You always need to put a negative number if you're doing an exponent in parentheses. So if you're doing an exponent, you use this little rooftop thing. It's right above the division sign. Okay, that's how you do exponent. So hit enter. All right, now watch what happens when I don't put it in parentheses. So I have a positive 16. I don't put it in parentheses, it gives me a -16 because what it's going to do is it's going to do 4 squared, and then it's just going to bring the negative sign down. Okay? So make sure that when you're doing it, you put your number in. If it's negative, you need to put it in parentheses because if it's positive, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer. Okay? So we said that was a positive 16 plus -2. Okay, so I'm just going to do 16 plus -2. And that gives me 14. All right? So a lot of this is just knowing how to navigate this calculator. Okay, last one. All right, first we have parentheses, okay? So the first thing in parentheses I have is negative 8 plus 2, okay? So I'm going to come over to my calculator and do negative 8 plus 2, and I get negative 6. So I'm just going to rewrite the whole problem. So I have 2 times negative 6 divided by negative 2. All right, so done with parentheses. There's no exponents. Now we have multiplication and division. Now, just because the m is first in this in PEMDAS doesn't mean we always just do the multiplication first. It's whichever one comes first from left to right, okay? Which in this case, it is multiplication, okay? So I have this multiplication, 2 times negative 6. So I'm going to do that first. So 2 times negative 6, I get negative 12. All right? So once again, bring that down, negative 12 divided by negative 2. All right, so that's all I have left to do. I'm just going to do negative 12 divided by negative 2, and I get a positive 6. And that's my answer. All right, so there are going to be a couple like this on the Edgelastic thing, so just really take your time in answering those. Okay, last is the distributive property. This one's a pretty easy one to remember. Some people just don't remember that it's called the distributive property. And this comes in handy knowing, especially in the next couple of sections that we'll talk more about on Wednesday, when we're solving equations for x, or when we're given an equation and told that x equals 3 and y equals 2, and you can plug it in, okay? So this is just a good skill to remember that you're able to do, okay? So the thing about the distributive property is the key word in there is distribute. All right, so when you're distributing something, you're taking something and you're passing it out to everyone, okay? Like people distribute mail, okay? Or distribute a note that needs to be sent home, okay? So what we're distributing is always gonna be that number outside of the parentheses, okay? So we need to take this 2 and distribute it to everything inside of our parentheses. So we take it and we multiply it by the x, and then we take it and we multiply it by the 3. And remember, we're not actually solving anything, we're just simplifying it. Okay, so there's nothing where we're gonna come out and know what x equals. We're just simplifying it is all. Okay, so we're first gonna do, our first step is 2 times x, which is 2x. Okay, and this is the part where almost everyone always forgets. They always typically do the first one, but they always forget to distribute it to everything. So 2 times x, and then you have 2 times 3, or 2 times a positive 3, which is a positive 6. All right, and then we can't do anything else because we're just simplifying it, and so that would be our final answer. Okay, and we didn't even need our calculators for that one. All right, next was number 12. And I hope, well, it's kind of too late now to say it, but I hope y'all are copying these notes down, because when you actually write it down and practice it on your own, and you are actually doing the steps, then it's a lot more helpful, okay, than just watching it. Next we have 3, and we're going to distribute it to the x, 3y, and 4z. If you want to, you can pause this video right now and try to work it on your own and see if you get it right when I work it. So pause it now, because I'm about to work through it. Okay, so we have 3, and we're going to multiply that by x, 3 times 3y, and 3 times 4z. Okay, so first we do 3 times x. So I'm just going to show that step. And then we have 3 times a positive 3y. So plus 3 times 3y plus 3 times 4z. Okay? So I want you to see each one of those steps, because what a lot of people do is get the 3x and then they'll just bring down that 3y and 4z. But I want you to see how it's multiplying by everything. Okay? So now we have 3 times x, which is 3x, plus 3 times a positive 3 is a positive 9y. And then 3 times 4 is 12. And that is our final answer. We can't simplify any more than that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 more problems to practice on your own, and then I'm going to let you pause the video, work them out, and then I'm going to put the correct answers. So here they are. Let's do 8 times 4x plus 2y, and then let's do 3 times x minus 4. Okay, pause the video, work it out. All right, hopefully these are the answers that you got. You do 8 times 4 is 32x, 8 times 2 is 16y. Next one was a little different in that I had a subtraction sign, but you still do the same thing. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times a negative 4, 3 times a negative 4, come over on your calculator, is a negative 12. Okay, so you have to make sure that subtraction sign is there. Now, if it would have been, oh, okay. A negative 3 times x minus 4, it would have been negative 3x. And then I would add a negative 3 times a negative 4. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 4. A negative times a negative makes a positive 12. So we would have done plus 12. Okay, just like I said, if you're ever in doubt about whether it's positive or negative or whatever it is, use your calculator. You now have one built into your computer that you have permission to use. Okay, so that is today's lesson. Now make sure that you go and get that Edgelastic assignment. I think it's 18 questions over questions exactly like this. If you, the one thing you may need to know is with fractions, I think there's one on there where it starts as a mixed number, so it may be addition or subtraction or something, but it may be like 1/2 times 1 1/2. Okay, there's no way to type in a mixed number into our calculators, so the first step you would do is have to change that into an improper fraction, which if you remember, you just make it mad. Multiply these 2 numbers, add those, and keep the denominator. So you would just rewrite this as 1/2 times 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and then you keep the denominator. And then you have it ready to type into your calculator. All right, so once again, if you are stuck with any of those, the best way to communicate your questions is to take a picture. Write out the problem, take a quick picture of it or something, and email it to me, okay? Or be very specific about what number you have a question on with the Edgelastic so that I can help you. Okay, the more specific you are with your question, the quicker I can help you. All right, hopefully that was okay. Hopefully that was easy to understand, and hopefully after a couple of days I can get the live stuff figured out so you can just be with us in class. Okay, miss you guys. Y'all have a good night.